And today we're going to talk about, again, a central, very important topic with fractions, absolutely critical for you to master, and that is called simplifying fractions, how to make them simpler. So what we're going to do is show you how fractions can be changed from sort of a complicated form to a simple form. And I think I'll tie it in with the previous lesson and show you that this is really not that different than what we did before, where we were just renaming fractions and showing how fractions can be equivalent. So many times in problems, when you're adding or subtracting fractions in the future, then what you will get as a result will not be as simple as it could be. And in math, you like to keep things as simple as you can. So a lot of times what we're going to do is do our operation, get our answer, and then we're going to take that answer and make it as simple as we can. And I'll show you what I'm talking about in just a minute, but just keep that in the back of your mind. We're just trying to make these fractions look a little bit better. And I've already showed you that two different fractions can look completely different, but actually represent the same thing. We told you that, we talked about that. And so what we're doing now is trying to take these fractions and make them look a little bit simpler, but even though they might represent the same thing. All right, so let's just dive right into it. What if we have 4/8? 4/8. And I'd like to make this fraction as simple as I can. So I'm going to rewrite this guy again. Now, one crucial thing I need to mention to you is to remind you that in the previous sections we said that you can multiply a fraction by anything you want as long as you multiply the top and also the bottom at the same time. Said that many, many times. We did lots of examples. All right, now here's the other half of that. You can also divide a fraction by anything you want as long as you divide the top and the bottom at the same time. So again, it's like that balanced seesaw that we talked about, that teeter-totter, right? You can do anything you want as far as multiplying and dividing a fraction as long as you do it to the top and the bottom. We already talked about the multiplying part. Now I'm just telling you that division, you can divide the top and the bottom by the same number as well, and it continues to keep the fraction balanced. So in this case, is there a number that I can divide the top and also the bottom of this fraction by that will make it divide evenly? And the answer is yes, 4 and 8. It looks like I can divide the top by 4, but if I do that, I kind of also need to divide the bottom by 4. When I do it like this, as long as I do it to the top and the bottom, then it doesn't really change what fraction I have, it just changes the way it looks. So when you look at this, 4 divided by 4 is 1, and 8 divided by 4 is 2. So I have 1/2. So this is what you would call a simplified fraction. So what you do is you look at your answer and you ask yourself again, is there a number that I can divide into the top and the bottom, other than the number 1, that will make this any simpler? And the answer is no. I can't divide anything else into the top and the bottom of this fraction, other than the number 1. Because nothing else will make it simpler. If I divide by 1, I'm just going to get 1/2 again. That doesn't make it simpler. I need to be able to divide it by something other than 1. And in this case, I can't. So it's done. This is what you call simplest terms. So you might see on a test, put the fraction in simplest terms. You might also see something like simplify the fraction. So we call this a simplified fraction. You might also see it called lowest terms. It's important to understand that all three of these terms mean the same thing. If you see somebody's asking you to make a fraction in simplest terms, or lowest terms, or simplify it, or something like that, those are all saying the same thing. Try to divide this thing by something that will give you something simpler. So let me do a couple more examples and then we'll just talk a little bit more about how important this is. Let's say we have the fraction 3/6 and I want to make it into lowest terms or simplify this fraction. So I'll rewrite it and I'll ask myself, is there something that I can divide the top and also the bottom of this fraction by to make it simpler? And the answer is yes, I can. I can divide by 3 on the top, then I also have to divide by 3 on the bottom. And when I do that, 3 divided by 3 on the top is just 1. 6 divided by 3 on the bottom is just 2. So this, again, is simplified or lowest terms. Now look at what we have here. Doesn't it look a little bit odd that our first problem we got 1/2 as the answer, and our second problem we got 1/2 as the answer? How can that be? how can it be that we get the same answer for both of these problems? What this is telling us is that all of these fractions are basically the same thing. I mean, when you think about it, what does 1/2 of a sandwich look like? You take a sandwich, cut it in half. That's what it looks like, right? Well, what does it look like when you have 3/6 of a sandwich? If you cut it into 6 equal pieces, but only actually eat 3 of those pieces, then that's half the sandwich, which is the same thing as this one. If I cut the sandwich into 8 pieces, but I only eat 4 of them, I've still eaten half a sandwich. So all of these are the same thing. When I take this guy and divide by something to get something simpler, you're arriving at something that looks different, but it's actually the same thing. All right? So the other thing I want to mention before I go forward is just to kind of absolutely drill that in and show you. If I have this fraction, and I'm going to represent the top one, I have to cut it into 8 pieces. So here is 4 pieces, and here is 8 pieces. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's 8 pieces. That was the first fraction I had, and I'm going to